All right, what's good, everybody? Welcome to Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. This is our weekly OSG Fantasy Report. Other side of the game. What's good, OSG?
Oh, not much. We are ready to rock and roll. Week 2. Week 1 was decent. It's in the books. We learned a lot.
We did.
Don't overreact. But
hey, Aaron Rodgers, relax. I'll make sure to rock my Aaron Rodgers shirt that I just made that says relax on it. So for you guys checking us out on YouTube, thank you. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, because sharing is caring. For those listening to us on the podcast, wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to, either follow us, rate and review, and of course give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Just give us 5 anyway and gift it. So, all right, we're going to dive into a big slate today. It's going into this coming weekend. We're going to make sure we're going to recap last week's games. We're going to talk through some of the decisions we made, why and why not, and who won the million.
Right.
Look at their numbers as well. Then we'll jump from games. We got 6 games that we think are important, and then we'll wrap things up after those 6 games into our Frozen features. Now, remember, everything that we're talking about here will also be in the write-up that the OSG does every week. We release that on Saturday evenings. That way you'll have details to read your evening reading before bed, get an understanding of your rosters, start to download those rosters and getting those optimizers for DraftKings, and be prepared for Sunday morning. So be prepared for that. OSG, let's review what we went through last week.
Was a good, interesting week. You know, we're going to start off with looking at that $1 million lineup there. And I'll really just say that lineup, who he played last week, and think about some of the players we talked about. He had Joe Burrow, who wasn't that great. He was decent. My quarterback was better than he is when we get to that. Melvin Gordon, Joe Mixon, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, T. Higgins, your guy, Travis Kelce, my guy, Marvin Jones Jr., who I liked, and surprisingly, the Cardinals defense. And but not surprisingly, I mean, we talked about defenses being in those high total games last week.
Yes.
That sometimes you can play those. Everybody's thinking that it'll be back and forth. Sometimes the defense shows up. So
I mean, that was key. So I was in Tennessee at that Titans-Cardinals games, and it was wild watching Chandler Jones go out there and basically abuse that Titans offensive line.
And even worse, just shut down Derrick Henry.
Completely. Yeah. And what made it interesting, I talked about this on the pod on Monday, that came out Tuesday morning or whatnot. What was interesting about that is the scheme that the Cardinals used. They had 8 in the box to start the game. And then when the game was basically out of hand, they said, you can let Derrick Henry run all you want. All you going to do is kill the clock for us, which was pretty good.
And gave him some, and they got him some fantasy points, and, he got stuffed at the goal line twice. So if he punches it in, the roster spot is a little bit usable. So that's just kind of what happened. So we said his lineup. So one of the better lineups we'll kind of compare it. He had Burrow at 18. I went Jalen Hurts. I talked about him running the ball. He had 28. That was good.
Right.
Said Nick Chubb was my favorite running back of the week. Did run on Kansas City. I got Christian McCaffrey in that lineup compared to his Mixon and Gordon. I played Tyreek Hill in that lineup. I would alternate Tyreek and Kelce, pay up for Kelce down again later. He ran both of them. Marquez Callaway kind of bombed, but the Saints, they didn't pass the ball.
No,
so
they didn't.
And in the red zone,
they didn't have to.
No, they didn't. They went up. So everybody played Callaway week 1.
They did.
Nobody's going to play him week 2, and he'll be in the same spot he's playing Carolina. He's not on one of the target games, but you'll see him in the report. I too played Marvin Jones. Gerald Everett was a decent tight end play. He got in the end zone.
Yeah.
Mostert got hurt. Can't do anything about that.
Yeah, and that was one of my big running backs. I had Mostert. I had Christian McCaffrey, which did not pay dividends.
And you find those gems. I sent y'all that message, said, hey, that running back, whoever that was, he was out. Mostert, play him. I sent that to another guy, 49ers fan. He actually texted back that Hasty will get carries, and even the guy behind him. So if I'd have kind of paid a little bit more attention to that, get that in. So
and that's little key details you want to look at when it comes to playing fantasy. Now, fantasy it can be super complex, but looking at the roster from that $1 million winner, you realize how close you really are.
Yeah, and
you're really not that far off. Because if you can get about 200 points, probably gonna win.
Yep. On the next line, I had McCaffrey and Mixon at running back, had Kelce in that lineup, Jones, and then another injury. Got Jerry Jeudy, was having a good game before that. So, that's what we're looking for. Fill up your roster. We're giving you all the puzzle pieces in the report.
Right.
You have to figure out how to fit them in.
Yeah.
Sometimes
look at the money.
Fit.
Look at
Some
that.
people get hurt.
And make sure you check us out on the Instagram account. You got the OSG Instagram account as well as Unfair Sports.
Send me questions.
Send questions. You can comment there. We'll also post the rosters there, and we'll also have it on our Twitter account at Unfair Sports. That way we can communicate with you all if you have questions or suggestions, thoughts. We want to get some dialogue going because Daily Fantasy, there's a lot of money there is available. You just got to know what to play and know who to play.
More to target.
More to target. So, okay.
Week 2.
Let's look at. We're gonna look at week 2.
That's the pass.
Yeah. We're looking at the future now.
Yes.
we're looking at the present
to the future. Actually.
So weather. What are we looking like that you think is key? Because right now it doesn't look like there's really any bad weather coming out this week.
Well, there's a couple games, and out of the 6 games that we're targeting, there are 2 actually with some weather. Tennessee at Seattle. Throughout that game, there's going to be 89% chance of rain, so that's something to look up leading into Sunday. Because that could be a good game. It's a 53.5 total. Seattle's favorite if Tennessee shows up, but rain. And then Atlanta at Tampa. It's Florida. Right now, it's a 60% chance of rain. By Sunday, it could be 40, could be 80.
So, which means it's gonna rain, but it's not gonna really rain.
It's possible.
It's gonna be a Florida rain. What you're saying?
I think I'm more worried about the Seattle because you got Brady down there in Tampa, and he can throw in the rain. So I'm a little more worried about the Seattle one. So that's something to keep an eye on. Leading up into that.
So Tannehill versus Russell Wilson in the rain. That's going to be.
Makes me go back to Derrick Henry, but we'll get to that.
Well, we'll definitely get to that one. So who's playing in domes this week?
At least on our list,
we got the Colts. It looks like at Lucas Oil.
Yeah, you can put the Cardinals on that list whether it's open or not, but good weather. But out of the 6, only the Colts are. There'll be a few other games in the dome, but out of these, just them.
Chargers is that?
I think that
is SoFi technically.
I think that
it seems like it's a it's a combo, isn't it? I think it has like the middle open, don't they?
You might be right.
Like Cowboy Stadium where you can have the retractable top. Because I know Atlanta's is definitely retractable where you can open up the little butterfly or
regardless,
people call it other stuff.
Great weather anyway.
So it'll be
open. If it's open, then there's a reason it's open. So
that's a good point. Yeah. So that's going to be an open up one for them to play through. Yeah, so that's a good thing. Like I said, really this week there's no domes except for in Indianapolis with the Rams and the Colts, which that one is definitely on our list of games to talk about as we look at all of these totals or whatnot. What else you think to pay attention to for week 2 before we jump into some of these games?
That's the main thing. Like I said, don't overreact. You like some people, you like some teams coming in. It is not over. It is September. People trying to figure it out. They didn't play it in the preseason.
Right.
Nothing's the same come December. And by then, we don't even really care about weeks 1 through 4. Brady used to not even really care about September. And he looked great. So, don't overreact. That's the main thing I would tell people. If you play, don't.
Relax. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, relax.
If he burns you, that's all the more reason to go back because he probably burned a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
So take advantage of that. Go back. Always go back.
I've learned that if they burn you this week, next week they're probably going to bounce back, or in a couple of weeks they will.
They're professionals. So you play them when they're in a good spot again. That's what you do. You play in the spot. So
play in the spots exactly. And so far it's looking like we've got some really good spots and we've got these 6 games. I think they're all going to end total wise over 50 at least. So I'm pretty amped about that. We give you all a friendly reminder. Like I said, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, thank you so much. Hit the like and subscribe button and share because sharing is caring. If you're listening to us on the podcast, we release our episodes Tuesdays, OSG reports on Fridays. The actual written report itself is on Saturday evenings in preparation, well, sometimes Saturday, in preparation for our Sunday antics. And you'll have the Frozen 5 this week from Jimmy Saturday morning for your consumption. So
let's do it.
Jump to the first game.
Yeah, let's go for it.
First game. Cowboys and Chargers. So Cowboys are traveling to Los Angeles to play the Chargers in the new SoFi Stadium out there, which is quite beautiful. Can't wait to one day find a way to get out there. Need to get rich to do it, of course. But
maybe be this Sunday.
Right. So we've got that one. The Chargers are favored
by 3.
By 3, which is very interesting, very intriguing line to me that they would be favored against the Cowboys on the road. But I think there's more to it, but we'll talk about that in a second. But the biggest thing to me is they have the highest point total prediction by Vegas at 55.5 right now. It's been teetering between 54 and 56 all day when I was looking at it. So when it comes to this game, what's the first thing that you're looking at for this one initially?
Start with the road team. you look over there, and so on this side of the game, and that's probably why the Chargers are favored. I think that the Cowboys are going to have a tougher matchup going against the Chargers, just slightly, but not by a lot.
What do you mean by Washington? Tougher?
Sometimes every now and then, the Chargers have a good defense that shows up.
Yeah, it's true.
Again, it's on the road for Dallas. They'll be out in the grass, but they still got a 26 team total, so it's not like they can't hit. Dak 6'8", he's going to throw. Zeke is going to be on the field, and you pretty much know where the ball's going with Cooper and Lamb. They're a little high price. Cooper 6'8", Lamb 6'4", but they'll be worth it. But being that they're the dog, kind of makes you wonder. If Zeke stays in the passing game, he'll be a good play. I always used to like playing Zeke, but kind of see how that goes in this particular in the matchup. Fitzpatrick got hurt, so that Washington game didn't really shoot out, even though I liked them. But the Chargers defense played decently well in that game. Again, they're not the Cowboys, but so that's why I just say that they have tougher matchup versus the Chargers. I think the Chargers have a better matchup going against this Dallas defense.
Makes sense. Look at DVOA wise, the Chargers are at they were ranked 7th based upon this past week game. Of course, number 1 is the Saints. And looking through it, the Chargers are at 7th on defense, 15th overall DVOA with the Cowboys.
And if you're going off last year's numbers, I know sometimes we got to look at last season, but the Chargers at the bottom there was 3rd best against the quarterback, 8th against the running back, 1st against receiver. So, he had a decent secondary. So that's why I say that their matchup, not that they won't produce, but just keep that one in mind. Wouldn't necessarily play the defense, but I think on this side you go Herbert, go right back to Keenan Allen. Last week I said he was a good bet for the touchdown. Got the 100 yards, didn't score, but he kind of caught the pass that sealed the game against Washington last week. And they got him the 100 yards. So that's the guy in the red zone. If they're moving the ball against Dallas, which they should, Keenan Allen's going to be a big part of that. 10 catches, 100 yards, incoming. Hate playing Mike Williams. We talked about that. I know I said keep playing who busts, but if he don't score a touchdown, he's just play him on FanDuel. Don't play him in a PPR.
Mainly because it looks like Herbert's not just going to go to him just to go to him.
Right.
Even though he does go through his progressions, he seems like he forces the ball to keep down if he has to.
Yeah, and you got better targets. You got Eckler coming out the backfield at 7-3. He's a better target than Mike Williams the way they run their offense.
True.
Keenan Allen at 7, and one of my favorite tight ends is going to be Jared Cook again. Play the veteran. Play Jared Cook and Gerald Everett. If you're not paying up, pay for them. Herbert's going to throw 300 yards. Dallas is not going to be friendly to that tight end spot. And that's why I'm like, we're one of the worst against tight ends. So even
though Dallas's tight ends, people have given them some respect. They think that they have potential.
Yeah. But on the Dallas, more than likely I'll probably stick with the Zeke Cooper Lamb passing tree. But I like Jared Cook at tight end over here.
I like that. I mean, Dalton Schultz is someone to consider if
he's not bad. Yes.
If you need to the low price, he's not priced high.
Yeah.
If you need to fill, Schultz is someone to consider.
Yeah, I can't tell you not to play anybody in a 55.5 total.
Yeah,
they're going to be on the field. If they're going to be running routes, they're viable. You get in the red zone, Dak is good enough that he's not going to not target somebody. He's going to throw it to the open guy. So,
yeah. And right now is a Cedric Wilson looking like a pretty interesting slot play. And to be honest, I think one to really consider for cheap and the way that the Cowboys are doing things, Tony Pollard.
Yep. And I will say this about the tight end spot. That probably is going to be the best place to target the Chargers, actually. When you brought, the outside, so it's a pretty good call.
Makes sense.
Give it to him.
Yeah, because looking at the numbers from last week, I believe Herbert felt the need to throw it to he targeted Jared Cook, 8 times?
Yeah, he's a 300-yard machine. So you play the people, we was targeting Hunter Henry in this. And, the chart, you think about history of a team, tight ends, Antonio Gates, we talked about Atlanta last week and their tight ends. Chargers throw it to their tight ends. He's only 3.9, so I think he's a good player we're not paying up for.
That's a good point. And me making mention of just enforcing passes to Keenan Allen. I mean, he targeted 13 times, but he did target Mike Williams 12, and Mike was 882 for a touchdown. He's the only one that scored a touchdown in that game. So that tells me that Keenan Allen's going to be the touchdown getter this week.
He's got to be.
Yeah,
it's got to be.
He's going to feed him those touchdowns.
He is
that Cowboy
the focal
defense.
point of the offense. I mean, but when you're throwing 300, it's possible. But Keenan Allen's your guy.
Let me ask this question though: defensively, who do you think they're going to put Diggs on? The Cowboys, because Diggs did damn good against Mike Evans in week 1.
Well, you got to think about if who's going to operate more in the slot. So it might be a little bit more Keenan Allen. Williams plays on the outside. So
yeah, I think Diggs is going to definitely shadow. They're going to shadow. He's going to have him shadow, and I think Diggs is an up and coming star. Yeah. They're going to have him shadow definitely like they did Mike Evans. If he was able to hold Mike Evans to 3 catches, 36 yards with a few tips on passes that he was able to read, he's definitely going to be keeping his eye on Justin Herbert. So defensively, with this high total, I would also consider that Dallas defense. I normally don't say a team in this high total on defense, but Dallas's defense will be causing turnovers. They'll be they lost Marcus Lawrence, but they be causing turnovers.
Like we said last week, you can play. Look at those. Don't forsake those defense and those high totals. Ball gonna be in the air a lot. Yep. It's not like Herbert's a veteran. He can throw an interception. He can let one go. The Chargers can put some pressure on Dak. They can get to him. They can get the ball out of his hand. So any defense you can target in that game.
All right, time to look at our next game with another high total. We have the Tennessee Titans traveling to the Seattle Seahawks. We mentioned this earlier in the first segment about the Cowboys and the Chargers, and we talked about this with the weather. This is going to be a weather game. We've got potential of 80% rain. Something to keep in mind with this game.
It is Seattle.
And it is Seattle. It's going to happen.
It rains up there.
In Seattle, it's going to rain. So if there's predicting it's going to rain, it's most likely going to rain. It's kind of like Florida. Seattle and Florida, only two. I always say if it's going to rain, it's going to rain. They say it's going to rain, it's going to rain. Seattle is a 5-point favorite in this game, and our total for the game at over-under is 54 right now. Right before we started, it was 54.5. So this is a high total.
So I'd be interested to see if that total, drops any more as it gets into Sunday. So, you kind of approach the game, kind of take the weather out a little bit, kind of examine it. But, if the total drops a little bit, that kind of makes you a little bit weather concerned. Not that you can't play some people, but you might kind of change how you approach who you're playing when you do that.
Right. But at the same time, we all know that the way that Seattle plays, they're going to air it out, especially when you let Russ cook. And then with the Titans, I think this is what made it interesting to me for this total being so high. Derrick Henry is the driving force of their offense. It's the only way they score points. So either A, they believe that the Titans are going to have to throw the ball because they're either behind or they're going to try to get ahead early. Or B, they think that Seattle's going to dominate them just like the Cardinals did last week, and they're going to take a second L to an NFC West team.
Right. Well, Titans, they're still getting the 24-point implied total, so there's some production there.
Yeah.
If it a little bit more on the rain side, that kind of makes me like Derrick Henry a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think Seattle's defense, kind of thinking about a defense to target in a high total game. You got to answer some questions. Is Tennessee that bad that we saw? We don't want to overreact week one. There's people I listen to that think Henry's going to have a down year that some people I respect their opinion, and week one showed that maybe people's goal is to target the box and just be smart and not let him beat you.
What it is too with that is think about this is that the Titans got a new offensive coordinator. So Arthur Smith is over in Atlanta. He took the head coaching job. So he got a new OC, first time being an OC. And so we're trying to new Julio. So we're trying to figure out was it Arthur Smith?
No Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, exactly. No Jonnu Smith, even though Fisker is a better catcher. He's more of a pass catcher in comparison.
But he did, he targeted Jonnu. That's a big part of the offense, so to speak,
So the question is was it Arthur Smith or was it Ryan Tannehill last season? And now we're starting to figure out which one is actually the one that put up those numbers. So
we won't overreact, so
we won't. But that's the thing to think about when it comes to this game. That's the thing that it looks like most people betting against them, and Vegas itself, I think they're looking at that portion. They feel like either that Titans defense, even though they added Bud Dupree, they did not look like they added Bud Dupree last week. They might be a team that everybody puts numbers up on.
So you start on that side. So if they are putting up numbers, if Tannehill has to throw from behind, if he can, I do think you go back to A.J. Brown. I think he is still to be the number one receiver, a little bit over Julio until they get their range. Julio, he's going to have some games that he explodes. It's still early, still healthy. But I think you go back to A.J. Brown. Henry's the driving force. So if you think Tennessee's going to bounce back, if you think Vrabel's going to get control, then you play Henry. That's the driving force of the offense. You go right back to that focal point. Keep playing them, and you either betting on them or you betting against them.
Yep, and they're going to have to find a way to target Julio Jones. Yes. I mean, A.J. Brown got his targets. He had his 8 targets in that game. Julio had 6, but it felt like they didn't get Julio involved until later in the game.
And, nothing got involved. They just never got out the gate. And,
they did not.
Arizona
it was bad.
called them up. So, so I think even after week 1, we really don't know what we're getting out of Tennessee. We're looking for structure when you're targeting the fantasy, but, but we didn't get that. So that makes them all wild card picks. That makes them all players that people are not going to want to play.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be 89% raining, I'm going to be in the department that don't want to play him and stick with Henry.
I ran a few simulations on Pro Football Focus earlier today, just looking at rosters. And guess who was the top percentage guy at about like 40% of my rosters and my 100 rosters they're made? It's from this game.
Which side?
Seattle.
Oh, if it's on that side, then it is probably Russ and Lockett who they're optimizing, but I think the better play is Metcalf.
Shocking development here. Yeah. Chris Carson is who they picked, the number one in optimizer.
And I'm not surprised, and I was going to get to him because we saw what Edmonds and Connor did together versus Tennessee. You can run on Tennessee. That's actually not that big of a secret. One thing that you're looking for when you're picking at running backs, home favorite in a high total, and Chris Carter fits that bill. They used him. He can touch the ball 20 times, and if it's raining, ball's going to be on the ground. So I do think Chris Carson, he's an excellent player at running back this week on that Seattle side if we can't target the passing game.
Yeah, he had 16 carries for 91 in his first game of the season, so he had a solid start. He did fumble and lost one in game last week as well.
Pete Carroll gets mad at people too, so he does limit people to keep that in mind too. So, but the more it rains, no matter, even if Chris Carson, and we talk about Derrick Henry, the more that if that total begins to drop, it kind of makes you scary, but so that's something to watch leading up into Sunday when you're making your decision. So
exactly, somebody to keep in mind. So of course you always have to play Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf if you can.
I mentioned
Will Dissly. I feel bad for him. Dissly.
Dustley. Well, it's Disley. Well, he plays Dustley. Yeah, Will Dustley.
We'll go with that. I feel bad for him because I think Jared Everett's going to be. He's already the favorite of Russell Wilson. He mentioned that in an article that I read not too long ago.
And of all the spots on the field, the tight end's going to actually have the toughest matchup going against Tennessee. They're running back those receivers just from a DVOA standpoint. Gerald Everett will have the toughest matchup. I mentioned liking him a lot, especially throughout the season. So, just keep that in mind. You pick the best spots on the field and, roll on. Play the spot.
Yeah.
Or fade it if you don't think it's right.
No, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. Mm-hmm. Back to the Titans before we wrap up. Can A.J. Brown get another touchdown?
Oh, yeah. I think he'd be a better player than Julio this week.
That makes sense.
Yep, for sure.
Pay AJ over Julio.
And eventually Julio's going to have this game. He's going to have this game that, 10 catches, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'd play him against like an AFC. I hadn't looked at their schedule that far ahead. They play somebody, in the NFC South, somebody he's played before, teams he's beats a lot.
Yeah.
That's when you play him. Just keep that in mind, matchup driven. But A.J. Brown, I think, that's Tannehill's guy. Even when they were struggling, he was going to him, and I think you go back to him.
Makes sense.
Go back to him.
All right. Next game, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the house hosting the Atlanta Falcons in division. So this is a NFC South game. Showdown/shootout. The spread is 100% disrespectful as the Buccaneers are 12.5 point favorites. Man. And then you look at this, but this thing that shocks me is the over-under is only at 52. Now, I'm guessing it's that low is because Matt Ryan's not playing in the Dome, so that kind of throws off a lot of what you would expect numbers-wise to get him going.
One of my weather games, 60% chance of rain right now.
Yeah, it's back-to-back weather games. Now, think about it, because Seattle was 80-ish. Mm-hmm. This one's 60-ish. So this is something to think about as far as the run game goes. Mainly because there's a chance that the weather could hinder some of the passing. Now,
and it's a 3 p.m. game. Yes, 3 p.m. game. So, got some chance for some late swap, but it's a late game. It's not a 12 o'clock game to Central Time.
Correct. Yeah, this is the second slate. Yep. So it's definitely one to keep your eye on. All right, what are you liking in this game?
Start on the visiting side. As bad as they looked. As bad as they looked. Matt Ryan, he's still only 5.6. Calvin Ridley is one of the best receivers in the game. But really the best player I'm kind of wanting to go back to is Kyle Pitts. He kind of let us down a little bit in a bad game, and his price went up, of course, on DraftKings.com.
So they're expecting something out of him this week. They think that Tampa defense isn't going to be able to stop the tight end.
I think his ownership kind of inflated that number to go up, but duly noted his price did go up. So when he kind of flails like that, it was a bad game for Atlanta out the gate. So go back to him, I think, here. It's not like Dallas did not move the ball against Tampa Bay.
Right. No, you're right, 100%. Yeah. But I think at the same time, Dallas is way more elite of an offense in comparison.
Definitely.
And I'm looking at this. Matt Ryan attempted 35 passes in this game and only got 164 yards, averaging 4.7 yards a pass. That's not good.
No.
That's beneath what we're used to with Matt Ryan.
We talked about him being 36 years old. He's not like he's Tom Brady at 44.
He's not spry like you're used to with Tom Brady. But at the same time, I would expect Matt Ryan to maintain his 300 yards per game type average, even in really bad efforts.
Yep. And Brady, they're going to be moving the ball so much that trash time is fantasy points.
It's true.
And Matt Ryan is the king of throwing from behind and getting those 300 yards.
It's like between him and Stat Padford, they seem to have a tendency of doing as Matt Stafford, if you caught that reference.
Which will change now. With a winner.
With a winner, yeah.
We'll get to him next.
Yeah, last year, Matt Ryan only had one game under 200 yards, and that was at home against Las Vegas in a win, in a blowout win.
Right.
Every game outside of that, the L's they were taking, they were all over 200 yards. I think his lowest 200-yard output was 224 against the Chargers in L.A.
So in that game, so for all those reasons, especially with being such big underdogs, I like to stick to the passing game. Mike Davis heavy used, but hard to trust a running back in that particular offense. So stick to the passing game on there. I know I mentioned Ridley and Pitts only, so if you build a lot of lineups, don't forget the Russell Gages of the world, but Ridley and Pitts, think bounce back pretty good this week. Probably won't get to Matt Ryan, but I'll take Ridley and Pitts though.
Yeah, I think Patterson's one to take and keep an eye on as well. He seems to be not the short yardage guy, but he's going to be a change of pace player.
Yep.
They seem to be integrating him heavily. He had 7 carries, while Mike Davis had 15. But I think the biggest problem with them is their run game is just. I mean, I like Mike Davis, but I don't like Mike Davis that much.
It's just never been. Atlanta's just never been a good fantasy gold mine for their running backs from a ceiling standpoint.
Who's that Freeman they had?
Freeman
put up some decent numbers.
He did. I've fallen for that Atlanta. I used to talk about this my overly played team.
Yeah,
because they play. We talked about the 8 games in the Dome, a game at the Saints. So a lot of friendly weather games for them. And
I consider them my Ike when it comes to betting on them. That's the team that always beats me around and makes me lose.
I'd be willing to say that they can cover that 12.5 point.
I don't know.
Trash time.
What does their defense look like? That's the question. We have to see, can their defense get even close to matching Tampa Bay?
I think that was the problem. As bad as Atlanta's defense was, wasn't the problem last week. They couldn't score. They couldn't bounce back. Eventually he's gonna give it up. But
well, at a certain point though, if you have your defense on the field nonstop, the defense is gonna start faltering and giving up everything. And which I think going against Tampa Bay, that elite defense is going to should do much better at slowing down Matt Ryan and making it, even though it would be a garbage time game.
That was Philly. They played.
They played Philly, and Philly was able to get them at home. And Philadelphia's defense, especially their secondary, has been suspect for years.
We're going to get to that too. So, but that's enough on Atlanta. Tampa Bay. Go right back to the main suspect. I think you go with Brady. I think you go Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown. Another A Brown.
I think you go to him. He's the cheapest of his wide receiver core at $6K.
Really?
Evans is 6'1". Godwin is 6'6". We saw Evans kind of get bottled up a little bit. Maybe some matchup there. I think you can go back to Gronk at 4.7, but I think you can really interchange. I mean, they got the highest point total on the board at 32.3. If Atlanta makes it a game and closes that gap a little bit, that makes it a little bit more where Tampa stays a little bit competitive a little bit longer.
Right.
But if they're going to throw 3-4 touchdowns out the gate, it's it's Antonio Brown, it's Gronk. Play him.
Play him. And the bad part about this is, I mean, Brady threw the ball 50 times. He had 3 79 last week.
300 bonus.
He threw a couple picks.
Touchdowns he's land on.
4 touchdowns, 2 picks.
And the picks on DraftKings don't kill you that much.
Right. But my thing is even with the rain coming, it looks like this is a week to definitely sideline Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones.
Yes.
I can see one of them catching a touchdown pass as a check down.
Yeah.
But I don't see either one of them as having value this week against this Atlanta team, even though Tampa may run it more to kill the clock.
That is true. Play Gronk, too. Just don't forget.
Play a lot of Gronk.
Don't forget him. But A.J. Brown, I keep wanting to call him A.J. Brown. Antonio Brown.
You may have a lot of Giovanni Bernard in this game, though, to be honest.
You might, but you know.
Because he caught 3, he had 3 targets last week. Yep. I can see them keeping him integrated, especially since Ronald Jones had that fumble last week, and Arians isn't big on guys when they fumble.
I think they look for any reason to not play Ronald Jones.
Yeah, it feels like that. It feels like he's just always kind of the odd man out.
Yeah, just they bring in other guys, and then when they all get hurt, go back to Ronald Jones.
I mean, you got Leonard Fournette, and I'm surprised that they don't pound the rock with him as much. But at the same time, that Cowboys game, that was more of a shootout, and it was a lot more of a passing battle than it was.
Evans got the low target share of that game too. Again, week 1, don't overreact. Brady's a professional, but
I'm gonna maintain my mindset. I would sideline Fournette and Ronald Jones.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
That's just not the running backs you want to target. When you can pick any running back out here,
that's
20
true.
touches. That's not gonna happen in Tampa.
Also, last one for me, Tampa defense, always worth picking.
Yep. Oh yeah, especially against Matt Ryan. I mean,
he's gonna throw a pick or two.
Yeah.
Get them turnovers. All right. Our next game that we have up on the slate, we have the Minnesota Vikings traveling to play against the Arizona Cardinals. In this game, the Cardinals are 5-point favorites. Interesting enough, they have a 51-point total in this game. Seems really high for these two teams, but we do know Kirk Cousins is infamous for throwing the ball a lot when they're losing.
Yep. And
Minnesota, it seems like their defense is non-existent.
Yep, but it's a pace-up matchup. The Cardinals are wanting to push the pace up. The Minnesota's defense, their secondary, they're what I would call it, suspect, not necessarily D-line. Now, we're just talking about
good.
They still managed to get 5 sacks against Cincinnati. You are targeting fantasy points, so they have a decent pass rush. So we'll kind of be interested to see how Kyla Murray goes back against that. They say decent, not great.
I mean, do we really count the Cincinnati game? I mean, I get, but it's Cincinnati.
Yeah, it was Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati actually played.
And Cincinnati won in overtime.
And the opposing quarterback won some $1 million. So anyway,
exactly.
So on the visiting side,
let's start with Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota. This pace-up game, Arizona likes to push the pace a little bit.
They do.
So I think you go right back to Minnesota's offense. We did like Dalvin Cook. He's priced, rightfully so at 9-1. So you have to be able to jam him in. I do like that passing game. We saw Arizona step up and stop that running game in Tennessee. Not that they'll take the same approach to it, but Dalvin Cook's a dominant running back. You have to target Dalvin Cook because Minnesota's coach, he wants to run the ball. He doesn't want to be in a shootout. He doesn't want it to be a fast-paced game. He's old school.
He does not trust Kirk Cousins. That's what it is. And you can tell by the way he reacts to things that Kirk Cousins do.
And it could be that.
He does not. He has no faith in Kirk Cousins.
No. So after watching that, though, I do at the same time, with Minnesota, straightforward offense, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. They throw it to him.
Yeah.
But the new oncomer, of course, don't overreact to week 1, but pay attention. Irv Smith, the tight end, is still out. KJ Osborne. He's only 3.3K there on DraftKings, and so
that's not bad.
No, that's I think one of the main value targets that we write about this week. Actually, a few of them in this game when you look at Rondale Moore on the other side. But I think you can throw KJ Osborne in there if you're trying to save a little bit salary when you're stacking up some people. I think he's a guy to look at. 7 receptions week 1, I do believe.
9 targets. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 76 yards.
Yeah.
Now, Thielen is the one that caught all the touchdowns, and I think that's going to continue the trend for probably the most of the season.
He's a great red zone guy.
Yes.
He really is. Jefferson is good on, and
he had 9
plays.
targets,
he's a burner.
too.
So, you had an offense that, again, straightforward offense.
Yeah.
It's Dalvin Cook. It's those 3 guys in the story, and they're going to spread around. Kirk Cousins, and when we're looking at fantasy, we say we want to about him, but he doesn't really change things. Those are his 3 targets.
Yep, and
Cousins, that's going to be the game.
Cousins had 49 attempts in this game. He was sacked 3 times. So
and now we're looking at a pace-up game, so he very well could Be throwing
he's
up
probably going to throw at least 50 times.
He could throw it again. He's 6.2K, so not the worst play against Arizona.
I'm anticipating 50 throws again.
Yep.
I'm anticipating 300 yards again. I don't know how many touchdowns he's going to get, especially the way Chandler Jones is playing right now. Chandler Jones is pretty ridiculous. So, okay, what we looking like over to Arizona?
But I will say, Minnesota may be a little bit different from Tennessee. You still get this offense continuity. Tennessee, new pieces, new old coordinator we're talking about. So I kind of think Minnesota shows up better than Tennessee does against this Cardinals defense.
Okay.
I actually do.
Okay.
Yeah,
so what we got
on good weather.
That's true. And we're in Arizona, so the way Arizona's looking, Kyla Murray is definitely something to consider.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what's his cost?
8.2. He's high. But
this is the one thing to think about when it comes to Kyler Murray. You're going to get multiple opportunities at points with him. He runs the ball. He's a scrambler.
Especially in the red zone.
He will run in for touchdowns. So he will take away touchdowns from the run game by taking it himself.
Yeah, so when you consider that, being that they're not line up and run the ball, even I think, if you get inside the 5, I think that's where we'll see James Conner. 16 carries last week. Chase Edmonds was in the passing game, but you kind of got
Chase had 12 carries as well.
And the target. So they both produce fantasy. The only thing James Conner being with 16 carries, he just didn't get in the end zone.
Yep. And what it was is that, and I was at that game. Whenever the Titans and if Minnesota does the same thing, stack the box and stop the run. Next thing you know, Kyler's going to fake it and run it in himself. It's guaranteed. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind if you're playing someone like that. It's a good thing about having a Kyler Murray is that he's a guaranteed double dip. He's going to run for touchdowns.
Yeah, so when you can't really figure out how to target, you just play Kyler Murray. So whether he runs it in the red zone or if he's passing it to D-Hop.
Yep.
You're getting all your points through Murray. So, he's expensive, but, you pick and choose where you want to spend up, and these are guaranteed fantasy points. It's going to be an up-pace matchup.
Yep.
Implied team total is 28. That's 4 touchdowns. So, And then I think that I mentioned the value. I think that Rondale Moore at 4K versus Christian Kirk at 5K. I think everybody saw the 2 touchdowns from Kirk last week. Everybody go there.
Oh, yeah.
I think Rondale Moore eventually, I think he's the guy. I think he's behind D-Hop, AJ Green, and FaZe. I think Kirk is going to be 3.
What's Moore's cost again?
4K.
That's not bad. That's not bad as a
and
spiller.
You're looking at this total. So KJ Osborne, Rondale Moore, those are your salary savers when because again, we're talking about giving people the pieces. These are some ways to salary save. You look at KJ Osborne in Minnesota, you look at Rondale Moore, still had 10 fantasy points last week when he was 3K, so the price did go up a little bit.
Because of that, so we're seeing that Kyler's going to end up using that. I think you'll see
one of those touchdowns that Christian Kirk caught.
May go to him.
Start going to Rondale Moore.
What about AJ Green?
I think he's just
now.
I think he's the low man out.
Keep this in mind. AJ Green was second in targets in this game. He had 6 right underneath
targets.
DeAndre Hopkins.
True.
He only caught 2 passes, but he had 6 targets where Kirk and Moore had 5.
And so as you build in lineups, the more that you play, you interchange those pieces. Again, we're looking at the 51-point total. So you can get a reason to play anybody. Just because I like Rondale Moore the most, I kind of like this rookie. I'm kind of on him a little bit. I think he'll get touches in the red zone, maybe. Because again, we say the same thing. Minnesota sees the same thing. So, therefore, the Cardinals, everybody think we're going to run Kyler Murray inside the 10. In college, Rondale Moore was using the red zone. They get, manufacture some handoffs to him. So, we hadn't seen, again, week 1, we hadn't seen the end of Rondale Moore.
That's true.
In my opinion.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Defensively, if there's one of the 2 defenses I would consider playing, it probably would be Arizona's.
Probably.
I wouldn't touch Minnesota's with a 10-foot pole right now, even though I like Hunter out there potentially getting himself a sack or 2 this week because he's kind of due.
Right.
He's due.
If you play Minnesota, if you like Minnesota, you're playing for a couple sacks and a pick 6.
Yep.
Still Kyler Murray. He's still talented.
He does throw interception. He is a turnover. He does run a bakery. You're right.
And when you run the ball, not that he fumbles a lot, but when you're running the balls out.
But if you're thinking about bakeries here, Kirk Cousins is definitely one that will probably throw 1 or 2 interceptions in this game.
So I really don't hate the idea of playing Arizona's defense. Again, want to chase week 1. Things don't always happen the same way.
Yep.
But I think their defense is good. They got a good defensive coordinator. We talked about their pieces. Yes. We talked about Budda Baker. Not a bad defense at all. The
one to me I think is going to be the difference maker for them. As great as Chandler Jones was last week, he won't do that again this week.
No.
J.J. Watt's probably going to show out. And then Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, you got good defense.
They got a really good defense in that part. And Budda Baker does a good job of playing that safety position too. So
they're at home.
Yeah, they're at home. So they'll probably be more comfortable. Keep that in mind when looking at this game.
Yep.
Arizona defense is definitely a play. Okay. All right. So the next game we've got on the slate, we're going to be talking about the San Francisco 49ers traveling to play the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes. Now, this is the game, if you're going to bet on, I'm going to talk to you about why I would bet on this game. So the Niners are 4-point favorites, and it's a 50-point total as of today, as of this recording. So,
who's your team?
Bet wise,
who you take?
Take the Eagles.
Take the Eagles.
This is why. You've got the 49ers traveling East Coast for the second game in a row. They may not have even went back to San Francisco. They probably stayed in Philly, and that usually puts teams in disadvantage.
I kind of think that would bode a little bit well for them.
Potentially, but it's also that depends if they stayed. If they didn't stay and they flew back and forth again, this is not a good look for them.
Just say take the line.
And you're
win or lose.
You're on the road as a favorite. Against a team that just won on the road. That's two factors I always look at when I'm picking my spreads. But this Niners team traveling cross country for the second week in a row, unless they stayed on in the East Coast, which I didn't see any article saying that they stayed. That concerns me for San Fran.
Yep.
And at the same time, they have no clue who their quarterback is. But let's talk about the visitors. Since they're the favorites, we'll talk about the 49ers first. What are you looking at when it comes to this game? What do you like?
I've been waiting.
It's jumping all over you.
Okay, so I said, some weeks you're either going to pay up for tight end, you're either going to pay up for Travis Kelce's of the world, Darren Waller when he's on the slate,
Kittles,
or George
Kittles.
Give me some Kittles.
Right. Oklahoma boy.
Tight ends and wide receivers operate in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Just play them versus Philly. Kittle, you look at his box score last week, didn't really need him last week against Detroit. They kind of jumped on them.
Right. They played Detroit.
But I think the game goes a little bit different this week. Philly will put up a fight this week, especially you just said they cover. So now they have to throw the ball a little bit more. Now you got to use your assets.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel, that was like the one guy lineup wise. That'd be the one Jim that didn't throw that kind of broke out, but he operates in that same middle of the field. So I do think that George Kittle and Deebo Samuel are excellent plays this week. I'm actually going to stay away from that running game a little bit this week. I know that's their bread and butter, but Philly is a good team against the run.
They actually are.
They're funnel defense. They shut the run down and they allow that pass, and they actually allow it in the middle of the field. You attack that. So that is why George Kittle is going to be one of my favorite tight ends this week. One of my favorite plays of the week. Just overall, one of the favorite plays of the week this week.
Yeah, I saw the O-line, D-line matchups on Pro Football Focus, and they've got the Eagles having a solid defensive line.
And they stop the run. They do. And that's kind of one of the trends over the years. I kind of talk about the tight ends versus Cleveland, runners against Kansas City, middle of the field, especially as tight end. Against Philly, and mainly because they stuffed the run so well.
Yeah.
So in this particular game, when you're building lineups, you got to figure out what you really like. So the 49ers, that's what they want to do. They want to run the football.
Yes.
That's their bread and butter.
That's life for them.
So do you figure out if they outpower that matchup, are they matchup proof or not?
Right.
And their fall, Mostert's out, next man up. We did see that works, but, will they struggle to run the football against Philly? And,
Now, if Philadelphia is smart, Kittle should go off on this game.
Yes.
He should, because Deebo Samuel got 12 of the 25 targets in last week, and that is a really high number.
I believe Kittle only had 4 catches last week.
Yep, 5 targets, 4 catches. Yep. That's kind of low. I mean, Deebo Samuel had 12 targets with 9 receptions.
Yep.
So numbers-wise, he's the volume guy. It looks like that is Garoppolo's security blanket. Yeah. That's his safety net. That's who he wants to go to, even though Kittle should be that.
Yeah.
That's something to think about.
Maybe maybe they lost their D coordinator and O coordinator in San Francisco.
That's true.
Maybe, again, week one, overreact, underreact. We are playing the matchups. Maybe they do want to get the ball in the receiver's hands more like most teams do and not have Kittle be so much of the focus, but still bake on history, play the matchups. Against played the match against San Francisco. Against Detroit. Of course, Deebo Samuel goes off for the wide receiver, they're supposed to, and that's why kind of hit myself for kind of missing that. But I was just all over the running game.
That's true.
They were heavy favorites in that game. They were actually the highest favorite last week. It wasn't too many blowouts. So that type of game script favors the runners.
It does. And we'll see if their running game still maintains, even though that's Kyle Shanahan, which is funny. Kyle Shanahan is known for being a quarterback whisperer, but his teams are super heavy on the creativity at the run. The run.
Yeah, they draw
at the power run.
Yeah, they draw up these run plays like they do. So, so if you want to go back to them, the thing that I always have problem. And the only reason I got on Mostert late is because Sermon got ruled out. And I thought he'd run the backfield. So now you got back to the question that you always have, Frisco. Who do you play in the backfield?
It's going to be Hasty as well.
Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell is really the one that kind of emerged out of that game.
He did.
He took all the fantasy points. I mean, Hasty did score.
Yeah.
The guy that did text me, he ended up with more points than my guy did.
Exactly.
Because Mostert with his 2. But Hasty landed about 9 fantasy points, but Mitchell ended up with about 20 fantasy points
That's true.
last week. So figured it out. But again, I'm favoring Kittle and Samuel, though, personally.
That's a good point.
Playing the matchups.
Got to play the matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Philly.
so with that, then looking at Philly, let's jump over to them real quick.
Right back to Hurts. It's one of my favorite quarterbacks last week. Gave us 28 fantasy points. Because again, whether you go down or up, you look at Jared Goff. Was he in a prime matchup? No. But what had to happen? He threw 300 yards on Frisco at the end of the day. Doesn't matter how it comes. Sometimes you just turn off the TV, don't watch.
Yeah. This is so bad. He's like, we're good.
Don't watch.
And then, of course, Detroit came back and almost took the game.
They did.
So if Philadelphia plays a clean football game, which Hurts looks like he's doing a better job of, he did fumble the ball once, but didn't lose it. Thank goodness. He runs a bakery as well.
Yep.
Someone to keep an eye on. But I think that
he
does a good job of staying composed.
Yeah, it is a tough matchup, but listen to you. If you favor them to cover, if you like the Philly side, then Jalen Hurts is going to be a part of it. He runs, so you're getting fantasy points in multiple ways. And when we compared, lineup to the million lineup, Hurts was better at a better price. So I do, I wasn't sure last week what to do about his receivers and who he would throw it to.
Right.
So you did get some little bit of clarity with Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor. I think you can go right back to either one of those two. I like those matchups. I don't really like the tight end spot there against Frisco, but I think Ertz might be hobbled, maybe out. That kind of helps.
Yeah, Ertz is a little
banged up. If he's ruled out, that kind of bangs up. That kind of brings up Goddard a little bit. But
he was limited in practice.
But I did say, last week I like playing Hurts by himself. I don't like stacking him much. Because he runs. He did throw those touchdowns last week. Yeah, but when he can't.
But he had 7 carries for 62 yards. So he's going to get you additional numbers, and he's kind of like Kyla Murray.
Yep.
Just he doesn't do much in the red zone. He does more in the open field, which leads to him getting touchdowns.
Exactly. But don't forsake it's and when you're ranking the quarterbacks, when you narrow them down, again, it is a decently tough matchup.
It's true. It's true.
But I do like him because he can run that ball and do multiple things.
Yeah. So in this game though, defensive wise, I wouldn't touch either one of the two. I wouldn't touch. I think if I would have to pick one of the two, I'd pick San Francisco's probably.
Yeah, not ideal for either one of them, especially on the road like they are. You never count out a good defense, but
even though Garoppolo didn't throw the ball much. He threw the ball in 25 times last game. Well, he didn't have to. So
25 times still got him 300 yards, surprisingly. I think he threw for 300 last week.
He did.
He did for 300 yards, which, again, know your sites, know your bonuses. In the leagues you are, so if you got 300-yard bonus, he did hit it.
Yeah, he did hit it.
But again, last week, I was all over the running game. Kind of missed on the passing game, but I don't like Jimmy G. He only had like one touchdown. And
Deebo Samuels did have that 79-yard catch.
And that 79 of the 300.
Exactly.
So you take that off, and you're barely over 200. That
inflates you. And like I said, Deebo Samuels basically had all the yards at those 9 kicks, 189.
Yep, or 189.
Yeah, 189 is what he had. So 21 yards a catch. Good God. Son. So, yeah.
But, but Jalen Reagor, he is only 4.1K. I want to throw that out there.
Keep that in mind.
And he had a good game. So.
That's true. Yep. All right, the final game that we're going to review and prepare you all on the daily fantasy is going to be the Los Angeles Rams traveling to Indianapolis to play against the Colts. The Rams are a 4-point favorite in this game on the road, traveling east, and the game total is sitting at 48.5. Now, for me, spread-wise, I would consider the Colts in this game, even though the Rams came into this game with high expectations. I have the Rams winning the NFC at number 1 seed in the NFC. I'm winning it, but I have number 1 seed just because Matt Stafford now does not have to be the quarterback every play.
Yeah, as soon as I saw them trade for Matt Stafford, I immediately thought the Rams were one of the better and one of my favorites in the NFC. You know, I'm a Bears fan. I've watched Matt Stafford play for years and years and years and play on a bad team. And it's productive. And then, of course, he opens out against those very same Bears that he's torched for year in and year out. And or, you know, I won't say that he's torched, but it was a team that he knew very well.
It's okay. He's torched.
Yeah, he's torched him a few days, especially when he's in that dome. And Matt Stafford's he was in good shape. He threw the ball. Was effective out the pocket, and
76% completion percentage, 26 attempts, 20 completions, 12 yards per pass.
Was not
me either. 3 touchdowns.
That was actually that's the thing. So starting with the Rams in this matchup, I actually love them. I think a lot of people will jump back on Cooper Kupp, and I think Cooper Kupp is one of those plays that you play every week, even if it don't seem like that it's going to be a great game. And that was even when they had Jared Goff. So now that you got Matt Stafford, who won't be rattled under pressure, which was Jared Goff's problem. When you get into those games where if you get a lot of pressure on them, the offense didn't do that well. Yeah. Matt Stafford is 6'4", but Kupp at 6K, and I think that those other receivers that's right behind, I think Robert Woods is in danger of losing a lot of playing time there.
Yeah, Van Jefferson looked like
that's the guy.
I mean, he put up. Yeah, he had the 80-yard touchdown. Now that was a one play that he got.
But he's a burner, and you're playing with. And so you think about Matt Stafford. Yeah, and you watched him. They had Galladay. They had Marvin Jones. They used guys in the slant, and then they had their deep guys. So as you could say that one play about them. But I think that we'll see that frequently. Oh, yeah, we see
Matt Stafford likes showing off that rocket. He likes showing off the cannon.
So we saw Russ Wilson in the spot against the Colts in this dome, and they lit him up. Now, the guy that I think that you play here, Tyler Higbee at tight end, he's 4.1K.
That's it?
It's all he is. He went for 5 and 68, didn't get the touchdown, but he played 100% of the offensive snaps at tight end.
He did. Nobody else.
No Gerald Everett in town anymore.
So yeah, no, basically no one for him to split with. That's my starting tight end on my season-long fantasy.
He's in a good spot this week.
He's a good.
I think he's in a great spot this week against the Colts. We saw Gerald Everett get that touchdown with Seattle last week. So I think he's one of those tight ends that you can interchange when you're paying down. But I really like this passing game.
I was looking at the Deshaun Watson, Van Jefferson piece, and a lot of people are thinking that Van Jefferson is taking that away from Deshaun Jackson.
Yes.
So we won't see much Jackson out there. No. We'll see a lot more Van Jefferson, and we'll probably get a big play.
Deshaun will catch a deep one. Van Jefferson, he's only 3.5. Deshaun is 3.3. But, you know, again, starts with Kupp. Think you can play Darrell Henderson again. I don't really like him. But we didn't really see Sonny Michel until the end of the game there much.
He only had one attempt.
Yeah, so if
he didn't have very many snaps either.
So if we are favored, and again, we saw what Chris Carson did against the Colts last week.
Yeah, it's true.
So again, you kind of look at that because you start building some, some sample sizes. So I think you can attack this Colts defense. Teams get popular when they play on prime time, but if you take away that, I really like them in this spot, though. I really do. Too. Love them, especially Kupp. It's one of my guys.
All right, so the Colts. I don't like anything about them. Like, there's absolutely nothing about them that's
they were
to
better last week than I thought. I think the one player you consider is Jonathan Taylor. We saw David Montgomery actually be productive against the Rams last week.
That's true. That's true.
Taylor, I think, got kind of game script out of last week's game when you look at his box scores, but I think he got a decent spot against the Rams. So I think that's something that you can attack in tournaments when you get a player, didn't play that well last week. Carson Wentz, but Taylor did have some targets though. I think he had 7 targets there last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Jonathan Taylor?
Yes.
Yeah, he had 7 targets, 6 catches, 60 yards to go with his 1756. So you'll probably get some double dipping out of him.
Get some 1756. That's close to 20 touches. When you count the receptions, that is 20 touches. So if
he had 23
so if you get in the end
total.
zone, he cashes in his, and that's quite possible. He didn't score last week, but it's not like it's impossible against the Rams.
Well, yeah, and I believe that because of that Rams defensive front, there's going to be a lot more quick plays to get Carson Wentz.
You rather target the run against the Rams than the pass. So I think Jonathan Taylor is probably the best. Carson Wentz is check down. You can play Taylor.
Yeah, he's going to have to be captain check down in that game. You got Aaron Donald running after you.
I do not want to play Pittman. Unfortunately, he's only 4.3. I don't want to play Campbell. I don't want to play bad players. I don't think they're any good. They're cheap. They got a 21-point implied team total. One of them going to score a touchdown. T.Y. Hilton isn't back yet. But
here you go with this one. You've got Jonathan Taylor had 7 targets. The highest targets in the game was Hines at 8. So it was all running backs. That tells you something. I wouldn't touch Indy's wide receivers with a 10-foot pole this week.
I don't really want to play them, and I don't even want to play Jack Doyle at 3-1 or
I like Doyle just because of the check down opportunity.
He'll get a touch. I mean, he's a professional. He's going to get a touchdown some of those weeks, but we're looking at some volume, man. At a 21 to 22 point team,
How did Zach Pascal get 2 touchdowns?
Red zone, not a lot of targets. How many targets he have?
5.
See. 5 targets,
8, 7,
2 touchdowns.
5, 4,
he touchdown chasing. So if you're reading the box scores, if you're looking at when people are building lines, they'll look at the fantasy points that he scored because you got the 2 touchdowns. But 5 targets. That's I don't believe in Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think Wentz is. We're all out on Wentz.
No, not yet. At least maybe they'll get some flow, but just play Jonathan Taylor. Move on. Play him. Move on.
Yeah, move on. Makes sense. Jonathan Taylor. So between the 2 defenses, if you're going to play anybody, you know who to play. Play the Rams.
Play the Rams. Actually, I think that's actually a pretty good play, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the better ones. And Aaron Donald's going to probably get a sack or 2.
Yeah, because when Carson Wentz is bad, he's like really bad, and it's just going to be if he's bad, it's really bad.
And Ramsey's going to be just hawking for an interception in this game. He wants one. And they're going to move him all over the field like they've been doing. Mm-hmm. Look at that one.
Yep.
All right, we're going to get ready to wrap this bad boy up, put a bow on it again. If you're on the YouTube channel, thank you for watching us. Like, subscribe, share, because sharing is caring. It's good to get past information on to everybody. Right now, it's free. We never know if we have to pay for it in the future if we start getting rich off of it. As well as if you're on the podcast, you can listen to this wherever podcasts are downloaded and listen to. Please like, subscribe, share, follow on Spotify, rate and review on Apple Podcasts, and give us those 5 stars. So, we're going to wrap this up. Defenses.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and just pick out a few defenses. Yep. Give us final thoughts on those. Yep. And then we're going to have our frozen features. Yep. And we're going to make the magic happen.
Yep. Those defenses last week, I told y'all, Josh Allen didn't look good against Pittsburgh. So you can play the Steelers any week. Play them again this week. Play Cleveland against Houston. Denver against Jacksonville. I think you can play the Saints against Carolina. Yep. Maybe even Carolina against the Saints. Jameis Winston's thrown about like 14 interceptions, something like that, against Carolina. Familiar with him coming out of Tampa. Speaking of Tampa, you can play Tampa against Atlanta. You talked about the Chargers. We talked about the Seattle and that weather game, not on our target list. But I think that the Patriots against the Jets, very, very viable, I think, this particular week. Some games wasn't on the target. I think we can look at the Josh Allen against Miami. I'm going to go back to Nick Chubb at running back. I think I know you're going to play Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. But, hey, that's not a bad combination. I think you can look at the running backs in the Cincinnati-Chicago game. They're going to give Mixon the ball 25 to 30 times a game. It doesn't matter. We saw Montgomery produce in a blowout at running back. Marquise Callaway, high owned in the first week, 3-4, but they didn't throw it to him, and now nobody's going to play him this week.
Correct.
And then you go right back to him. I think that Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller in that Vegas game, we talked about the Steelers defense.
Oh, yeah, Steelers defense, yeah.
Najee Harris, so in that game, Najee Harris, he was the only running back to carry the ball in that game.
Yep.
So he's going to play that bell cow role again. They got a good matchup this week.
And matchups for that one is a good one to look at because the Steelers have a 34% pressure rate, 10% conversion on sacks.
Good field position. Give it to the running back.
Eating the Raiders on the pass and run protection.
Yeah. So that's going to set up him to be productive. And we talked about that New England defense. Damon Harrison, I think he'll get 20. He actually wasn't sure what they would be doing and how they pass around the ball. Damon Harrison, he outshined, and I think he's a good matchup against the Jets.
That's a good point. Yep. I think Arizona and Minnesota are going to be good to look at because they both convert on sacks very well so far. So there's a good chance that we'll see a lot of that portion of it. So, all right. So we're gonna let's do this. We call this the Frozen Features of the Week. I've got 5 questions for you, OSG. We're gonna just go all the way out there.
Let's do it.
I want you to give me the wild.
The questions. Let's go.
All right. So I want you eliminating the top 5 on this. I want you to give me the quarterback you think is going to give us 350 yards plus.
350.
Yeah, I want big numbers.
350.
Who you think is going to have a stupid week?
Give me Justin Herbert against Dallas.
Justin Herbert. Okay. I think that's interesting. So you think he's going to be able to eat that Dallas
out of that number in the in that top 6. So give me Herbert. 300-yard machine. Yep.
Justin Herbert. Okay. Running backs, eliminating your top 5, your typical guys.
Burley gets him out of there.
You ready?
Yep.
I want to give me a running backs. I'm going to give you 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns.
Plus.
I went out of my way to bring him up. I think Najee Harris has a good one. I think he gets in the end zone against the Raiders. Give me him. Give me Najee Harris.
Okay.
He's at home this week.
Yep.
Give him to me.
Perfect. All right. Wide receiver. Taking our top 5 out again. Who's going to get us over 150 yards? I mean, a stupid game.
150.
Yeah, we want a stupid game. We want something that's going to get the fantasy people some real money that most people probably won't think is going to happen. No, yeah. You got to think about this one.
Yeah, but I think I got somebody. I was scrolling to make sure I want to stick with him. Oh boy,
it's a tough one.
It's okay, but I kind of talked about how they had a tougher matchup. But 150,
yeah.
Amari Cooper.
Ooh, you think Dak's gonna make it happen?
Dak, they run a lot of volume through Dallas.
That's true.
They run a lot of volume through Dallas.
Okay. Tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna give me 2+ touchdowns?
Who? Now 2 is hard to get, but if I have to pick one, I'm gonna give you 2.
Okay.
Darren Waller,
of course.
Rob Gronkowski. This is Brady's favorite target. This is a good matchup again. He's playing Atlanta. They suck.
That's true. That is true.
And that's like his favorite red zone target. He could have 3 catches, 2 touchdowns. It's that.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. With that, defense. I want you to tell me, all defenses, anyone's available, who's going to hold a team under 10 points?
Under 10 points. Ooh.
Because that looks really good on your fantasy numbers.
That's one team.
I know. See, there's a lot to consider.
2.
Okay, you got 2 on your mind.
I got 2.
You got 2?
2 good ones.
What you got?
Tampa.
Okay.
Shutting Atlanta down.
So you think
just in case that's a dumpster fire and that what we saw out of Atlanta is just Matt Ryan ain't been since Brady came back on him. Now he's playing Brady again.
Brady is undefeated against them too.
And I'm actually saying 3.
Okay.
So Tampa. My original second was the Saints going to Carolina.
That Saints defense is
good. Now Sam Darnold, I liked him week 1 against the Jets.
But
they didn't light it up. He didn't wow me like I wanted him to. He did this. He threw that touchdown to Robbie Anderson. I talked about the double revenge game that happened with the touchdown. Only 3 catches for Robbie Anderson, but Saints defense pretty good.
That's true.
And I like them. And so the one I jumped on last was I think Cleveland gets Houston to come back to reality. We realize that Tyrod Taylor isn't, he does do good in dumpster fires, but, again, he's in a dumpster fire, and that's where he goes, and he's not that great. And Mark Ingram, so Cleveland.
Okay.
Tampa, Cleveland,
and the Saints.
Yep.
And New Orleans are our 3 to look at on the defensive side. Cool.
Yep.
I like that. That's our frozen features.
Yep.
I like that. I like those selections. So, with that, we appreciate you joining us as usual here on Unfair Sports. For Mike, Bob, and Wendy, thank you so much on the back end for doing what you do best. For my co-host Jimmy, check out his Frozen 5, which should be here Saturday. OSG as usual. Thank you.
Check out the OSG report.
The report, the actual article will drop on Saturday. It'll be on the Medium page. You'll see it as the feature article as soon as it's ready.
You got questions at the OSG report.
Get us questions. Hit us up in the comments on the Medium article as well as on Twitter.
And the newest thing too, if you're on DraftKings, look for that Sunday game, the OSG Sunday game.
Yeah, we got the OSG Sunday game every week.
In the lobby.
We'll have the unfair free game. Come beat us.
Come beat me.
Pull up.
Yeah, right.
Pull up.
There you go.
Pull up. If you got this, pull up. We want it. Pull up. Come beat us. We got 2 contests.
Pull up, son.
You'll see them on Pull Up, son.
Yeah.
You'll see us on, I'll have them posted on Twitter as well as Facebook. So with that, we'll chop it up in a few days.
Yep.
Peace.